Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminally, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today I want to ask the question, should we stop rating books? So this video was prompted by a post that the author Joe Hill put up on the social media site Threads the other day, like a week or so ago. He's subsequently taken it down. I think he realised it wasn't the smartest thing that he'd ever said, and I think a lot of people on Threads pointed out to him that it wasn't the smartest thing he'd ever said. So what he said was basically, if you're not going to rate one of my books 5 stars, don't bother rating it at all. Like 5 stars or nothing. Which I think a lot of people took offence at, because it assumes that readers, when they are rating books, are rating them for the author rather than for other readers. And clearly the point of reviews, the point of what I do on my channel, and the point of reviewing books on places like Goodreads and Amazon and things like that is to inform other readers of your opinion of that book, the quality of that book, so they can make an informed decision about whether or not to read it. So yes, a lot of people have pointed that point out. I thought it was worth reiterating here. Reviews are for readers, they're not for authors. Now, I love supporting, particularly independent authors on the channel. I love reading books by indie authors and talking about them. But when I do those reviews, I do them, thinking about you as readers, rather than about the author. And whilst it's always lovely to get like an email or something like that from an author saying, thanks for reviewing my book, what I like much more is getting messages and comments and things like that from viewers, from readers, saying, I read that book you recommended and I really loved it, thank you. That's what kind of gets me out of bed in the morning in terms of making videos. But anyway, this kind of got me thinking about the concept of rating books. And one of the things Joe Hill was saying was, in his post, I think, was that basically people, if people see a book has got like an average 3-star rating, that turns them off. They think it's a bad book. Now, 3 stars is not a bad rating by any means. I can think of a lot of books that I enjoyed reading that I would recommend to the right readers, that I gave 3 stars to, and that got me thinking about the fact that ratings, particularly on like a 1 to 5 scale, are enormously subjective, and it may just be down to your mood when you finish a book, whether you give a book 3 stars or 4 stars or 4 stars or 5 stars or whatever. It's a point in time rating of your impression of the book, and it has no nuance to it at all. It's an incredibly kind of blunt instrument to express your feelings about a book. Now, when I rate books, I rate them very much on my personal experience of reading the book. A really good example that came to mind when I was preparing for this video of a book that I given 5 stars to, which objectively doesn't deserve 5 stars, is the book Slugs by Sean Hudson. So this is a very cheesy, early 80s killer animal book about killer slugs. It's completely ridiculous. It's really over the top. It's really gross and graphic. There are multiple problems with it. But I love it. I love that book, and that's why I've given it 5 stars. Now, that 5-star rating shouldn't make people who see it think that it's a great work of literature, that it's a book that that anyone would enjoy. It's just a book that I love. So that that rating is incredibly subjective, and I think it's very difficult for reviewers to be completely objective about books. It's not like reviewing something like a mobile phone, or there's so many. We've got like a real review culture nowadays, haven't we? In that people like me have YouTube channels where they review stuff. I choose to review books, but I could just as easily be reviewing phones or watches, which is something else I'm interested in. There are some things which it's very easy to be reasonably objective about in terms of reviewing. If you're reviewing a watch, for example, you can talk about the build quality, you can talk about the accuracy, you can talk about the materials that are used and the value for money and things like that. The one thing about reviewing something like a watch that is subjective is design, but apart from that, most of the points you would talk about, you can kind of objectively rate. But I think it's really, really difficult to objectively rate a book, because so much of it is about you as a reader and your personal reaction to to what the author is trying to do with the book. I've talked about this a bit when I've talked about disturbing books. I think the real power of a book that you as an individual reader find disturbing is that you feel seen. You feel seen by the author, and it makes a real connection between you and the author. But you as a reader might be hugely disturbed by a book, and somebody else might read it and not be disturbed by it at all, and just not get what you're going on about, because it's something that kind of taps into your deeper psyche, I guess. So yeah, reviewing books, enormously subjective, and that's why I think I question whether giving books ratings out of 5, or whatever number you choose. Some people do like 4.37 or something like that as a rating for a book. Whatever number you choose to rate, whatever scale you use to rate your books, it feels like a way of assessing a book that is completely lacking in any sort of nuance. It's very definitive that a book that's got 4 stars is going to be better than a book that's got 3 stars, and that just isn't true, because so much of it is subjective. So I question the value of rating books, particularly when things like averaging. So a book that's got loads and loads of reviews will often end up with an average rating in the 3s somewhere, just because that's how averages work. Some people like the book, some people won't like the book, so you end up with with somewhere in the middle. And I question therefore what the value of that is. So much of like modern commerce is about things having ratings, things having like user reviews and things like that. But we're giving things ratings really for the benefit of Amazon, rather than for the benefit of other consumers, particularly when it comes to books. And I think talking about books and actually having a discussion about them, and talking in a review about what you liked about a book, what you didn't like about a book, why it spoke to you, is much more useful for readers than a rating out of 5. That's, I think, the reason why something like BookTube has and Bookstagram and things like that have become quite big in the book world, and Book Talk, I guess, is probably the biggest one, is because as a viewer and a reader, you can build up a relationship with the reviewer that you're watching, and understand where their tastes overlap with yours, and therefore what is, if they rave about a book in a particular genre or something like that, you might know that that's going to be a good recommendation for you, but in another genre you might know it's not going to be such a good recommendation, because your tastes are different. Everyone's tastes are slightly different from each other. So for me, talking about books and discussing their merits is a much better way of assessing their quality than giving a rating. And that's why in my reviews on the channel, I tend not to say how many stars out of 5 I would have given a book. I do occasionally, but generally speaking, I just talk about my experience with the book. I have to, Goodreads encourages me, it doesn't force me, I guess, but encourages me to leave a rating out of 5. But I wonder, I'm thinking going forward, maybe I should stop doing that. I don't know if it's helpful. Where it is useful for me, I guess, when I'm looking back at my reading, and I do this sometimes, is I can extract all of my books from Goodreads, and rank them in Excel from 5 down to 1. So for that it is useful. But in terms of me like trying to discover new books to read, I'd much rather listen to someone talk about a book, or read someone talking about a book, read someone's opinions of a book, than just look at a flat rating. I think ratings can obscure so much, and also can be incredibly misleading, because the experience of reading a book is such a personal one. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting. Do let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think we should move away from using ratings completely? And as always, thank you very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.